To order the New York City Transit Committee. Let's get started with our safety announcement, please.
Your safety is of the foremost importance to the MTA. Therefore, we ask that you listen and adhere to the following instructions. If you witness an emergency, notify emergency personnel in the room and call 911 immediately. Please follow any audible instructions provided through the public address system or visually on screens in the event of an emergency. If an alarm sounds, wait for a public address announcement and follow instructions. If told to go to another floor or to evacuate the building, leave all unessential items behind and use stairwell A just across the main hallway or stairwell B down the hallway past the elevators. If you have a mobility disability or cannot self-evacuate, please proceed to stairwell D or E for assistance by MTA staff or emergency personnel. An automated external defibrillator, AED, for use by trained personnel is in the main hallway just past the elevators. If you need assistance during an evacuation, please tell an MTA staff member or emergency personnel. Thank you and have a safe day.
Thank you. Let's move on to our public speakers.
Good morning. We have 22 members of the public registered to speak today. As a reminder, we ask that all public speakers adhere to the MTA's rules of conduct and decorum. I would also like to remind our speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all, we limit all speakers to 2 minutes. Please be aware that there will be a warning beep to remind you that you have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. The first speaker will be John Padula, followed by Michael Ring.
Where am I? There we are. All right, batting lead off today. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Padula from New York City Public Schools. I'm also a member of the Advisory Committee for Transit Accessibility. I'd like to start off by thanking Board Member Valdivia last month for her candor on the inappropriate use of, or the irresponsible use of the word irresponsible. Folks, Phase 1 was not irresponsible. What was irresponsible and what's offensive is when leadership says that it was irresponsible, but the only thing that was irresponsible was the lack of oversight and the lack of action when it came to the people that put in fraudulent trips and abused the program. 5 or 6%, and it's collective punishment, and you're punishing the rest of us. That's what was irresponsible. I don't know if anybody's ever read the book, Who Moved My Cheese? Great book. Pick it up. And sometimes you got to let go of the old cheese to find new and better cheese. So I'll put that behind me and let it go. But Phase 2 works. Phase 3 needs to be better. Phase 2 works. Phase 3 needs to be better. You guys can still stay within budget, but provide a reasonable Phase 3. The subsidy has to go up. Rich, I don't want to hear you keep saying that you're on par with the rest of the country. You're not. Chicago is smaller and offers a $30 subsidy, which is 20% higher than the 25. You need to give us more subsidy, more trips. Forcing me to use on-demand, traditional rather than on-demand, costs the agency more money. I take a trip with traditional, it's 28, 30 bucks. If I was using my on-demand, it would cost you 10 or 15 bucks. So my 3 asks, my reminders, I've been saying this. Where are we with the 20-minute window? What's going on with intra-borough taxi authorizations? And again, a meaningful, useful Phase 3 sooner rather than later. January, February is coming. Let's not put it off. Thank you very much. My name is John Padula.
Our next speaker is Michael Ring, followed by Zoe Nipstein.
Hi, I'm Michael Ring. Anyone who needs a verbal description, I'm just a white guy wearing a hoodie, and I have a fresh haircut. I wanted to talk about elevator maintenance. An hour or two ago, I was outside demanding a settlement to the case that I'm part of. I'm part of Disabled in Action. There's a lawsuit asking for elevators to be maintained on a schedule so they break down less often. That's maintenance, like I'll call it with a capital M. I'd like to talk about maintenance with a small m, keeping them sanitary. Later, I'm sure everyone's going to talk about all the surveys that are being sent out, some very unscientific surveys. I'm hoping you guys can do a survey and compare how often an elevator has to be taken out of service because it's unsanitary in a station that doesn't have a working bathroom. People need to use the bathroom. You spend an hour or two on the subway, things happen. Not everyone who uses an elevator as a bathroom is a psychopath. It happens. They'll find a port in any storm, and that might be an elevator. If there was a working bathroom, there are bathrooms that aren't working, open them up. We don't need perfect bathrooms. If there were more bathrooms, there just might be more working elevators, and everyone could ride the elevator, get to work, go to school, and more people get to go to the bathroom. It's a thing that people have to do. We closed a lot of them during COVID. No one's getting COVID in a bathroom. We figured that out. They don't all have to be renovated. Just unlock the door, clean them regularly, and we'll have more elevators at the same time. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Zoe Nipstein, followed by Miriam Fisher. Zoe, you can begin.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Zoe Nipstein, and I'm a student at Pratt Institute, and I'm representing the New York Public Interest Research Group. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'm here today to share my experience with public transit. Like many other students, I rely heavily on the MTA as a way to commute to and from my classes. Most students, especially CUNY students, do not live on campus and depend on transit to travel between home, school, and work. This can be a struggle for students, as transit systems, especially the bus, will regularly show up later than the stated arrival time. More likely than not, I will have to resort to commuting to class by foot. My commute is only 2 miles, but that isn't the case for those who are, for instance, taking the bus across Brooklyn, relying on its punctuality in order to arrive at their destination on time, when being on time is crucial. With winter proceeding, it won't be as easy for me to decide to just simply walk to campus. Subjecting commuters to the approaching cold temperatures is a risk to the community, and it's unfair to not provide students with an efficient system that assures a smooth commute. Additionally, this lack of improvement in reliable arrival times is paired with a raised travel fare of $2.90 per ride. This fare is unacceptable and creates another restriction not allowing students to commute via the MTA. A recent study found that 90% of CUNY community college students use mass transit to commute to school, and identified that challenging of affording a Metro card came up more than any other barrier in a college degree completion for the individual surveyed. For most NYC students, paying for mass is an integral part of their higher education and budget, and the rising costs can result in students choosing between paying for food or textbooks and getting to class. This problem seems to only get worse, and one of the leading causes of this issue is the congestion in New York's transportation. New York City subway systems is the oldest in the world, and yet still depends on outdated technology and infrastructure, utilizing signals put in place in the 1930s in many outdated subway cars, many of which were built in the early 1960s. This creates a backed up system, but there's a solution. By prioritizing congestion pricing, we work towards what is essential to meet the goals of the MTA's capital plan.
Please conclude your remarks.
The single biggest piece of capital funding is $15 billion, is expected to come from congestion pricing. This investment will mean more reliable.
Our next speaker is Miriam Fisher, followed by Yolanda Aline.
Am I audible?
You are.
Okay, thank you. I'm supporting what my colleague Michael Ring said about elevator maintenance. 30 plus elevators are out daily, 33 escalators. MTA, please settle the elevator maintenance lawsuit so that people can ride predictably and safely. More bathrooms. 78 out of 133 bathrooms are accessible for people with disabilities. Increase those. Those that are there, can they be retrofitted? As some of the comments I've heard in previous months have had only one comment: the elevator smells of urine. Less urine, more bathrooms. Benches. Benches have been moved in various stations where homeless people congregate. Everybody needs benches. People who are pregnant, bad backs, bad knees, seniors, bring back the benches, no leaning benches, which nobody ever uses, and I have no idea what they cost. We need more benches. Signage, let people have information about elevator outages, auditory and visual. Here's an example. We have digital signs like this in New York City, but they only tell us when the next elevator is coming. This is Washington, D.C. Excuse me, when the next train is coming off into the minute. We don't have knowledge of elevator outages. This is Washington, D.C. This looks like a familiar digital sign that says elevator outage. It's not from New York. They can do it. There's the technology. This is Washington, D.C. Announcements on the trains, on the platforms, use the new staff that are free
Please
from
conclude your
the
remarks.
to alert people who get
Thank
stranded.
you. Our next speaker is Yolanda Aline, followed by Bruce Hain.
Good morning. As a stressor ride user, it's very irritating to know that you get a phone call, a voicemail telling you the blue and white van is going to leave, and he didn't show up yet. I have a voicemail from one of the services and told me that, oh, if you're not outside in 5 minutes, we leaving. The guy never showed up. I'm standing there waiting for him to show up. What kind of nonsense is that? Do subway riders get that sort of nonsense? Only stressor ride users get this foolishness. It's irritating at times when you have to wait and they don't show up on time, and then when they show up, the shocks don't work on the vehicles. And I have a back issue from my last experience, August 30th, that I'm still suffering from, that I have to get a procedure done on my back because of my accident that nobody in the MTA cares about. But that's neither here nor there. But they have the blue and white vehicle, their shock is horrendous. They don't fix the vehicles right. And if you get any of those other broker service, the vehicles are filthy. No one cleans behind them. And if people that use stressor ride are always disabled and have immunity problems, how can you ride in a filthy car? That's most ridiculous. And you know, it's very annoying. And I have to talk about the buses in Brooklyn that MTA had relegated themselves to have these vans take over with no license plates, with Pennsylvania license plate, and they absolutely does nothing for it. And the B46 and the B17 can't turn on Eastern Parkway because they took up all the bus stops. Most ridiculous. And there was a fight on the
conclude your
subway
remarks.
sometime in October. I'll talk to you about that. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Bruce Hain, followed by Michael Ortiz. We will come back to Bruce Hain. We will go next to Michael Ortiz.
There we go. All right. Hello. Good morning, New York City Transit. I just want to come on here to say that we are happy to announce that the rollout of Omni is going really well with the Omni card vending machines. I would like to see that process go a little faster, however. The next thing I want to discuss is the rollout for Omni for students and reduce fare customers. That is something that has to be done And when the spring semester begins, I want to make sure that students get transitioned to Omni as it's time to transition to a new and more secure therapy. The next thing I want to discuss is our subway systems. The F is already, why would you call the shuttle the F between 63rd and 23rd Street Queensbridge? Right? That makes it confusing. You should call that route the S because it's a shuttle. And when that happens, when that service is complete, I think that the F should be permanently rerouted with the E on 53rd Street so that expresses and locals along Queens Boulevard can stay separate from one another. I would recommend that the R gets moved to the 63rd Street tunnel to maintain the Broadway service on Queens Boulevard. That is one thing that's important, and because Queens Boulevard riders want local service. 53rd Street for express and 63rd for local. And other than that, that will be it. I will get to the buses next Wednesday. Thank you for your remarks.
Our next speaker is Maddie Bucas Highland, followed by Monique Johnson.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Matthew W. Bucky's Highland. I'm here to speak today about safety. And then before I want to talk about the Staten Island Railway. I visited a family friend in Staten Island on November 25th. We were discussing how the railway goes from the St. George's Ferry to Tottenville. We thought maybe we could possibly expand to maybe Perth Amboy, New Jersey, or South Amboy, New Jersey. That would help people who want to go to New Jersey pay $2.90 rather than paying $17 from the Outer Bridge Crossing, which is a facility operated by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. I want to talk about safety. I would like to echo what I said earlier today, is that we need more cops at subway stations. And it really is, crime is an epidemic. It has to be contained. It's a cancer that has to be cured. And you know what? Who could be the next victim to be pushed onto the track? I mean, I have an autism. I have a disability. And I fear for my life, that people may not be able to help me because, that's how it is. I would hope to consider that the city considers expanding the Staten Island Road from Tottenville to Perth Amboy for their commutes. Thank you, and God bless you. Have a great day. Miss Molina, over to you.
Our next speaker will be Monique Johnson, followed by Bruce Hain.
Hello. I want to ask you a question. Y'all MTA, I came in earlier today just so I could sit and watch. Y'all also have members and family members here that work for y'all that are disabled, right? What message are y'all sending to them by not selling in this lawsuit? Are you saying that disabled people, they work for y'all because they take the job, that they don't count, they don't matter? What do you say when they come to work late or go home late because of the elevator's not working or because the bus routes? Do y'all ask them how they can make things better or help us? Do y'all even ask the disabled people that work for the MTA? What can they do to help make things better? No? But what can we do? CUC, communication, unity, and community. If we all come together, we can stop all of this. We can find a solution. But everybody wants to be right, and we find no solutions. These accessorize, they mistreat us. They throw our little disability stains in the truck, knowing that our insurance not going to let us get it. If it breaks down, we don't have no way to get to where we need to go. And even with accessorize, like the lady say, If you don't show up and it's your first ride, they tell you you can't even get a car to go where you need to go that day because a driver came and said that you was a no-show when you sitting there. We need to fix all these kinks that we have and start using the community and the unity and communicate. We're all in here together. Let's act like it and stop fighting
Please
against
conclude your
each other.
remarks.
Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Bruce Hain, followed by Ian Matthews.
Good morning. I wasn't going to show up today, and I don't usually come to MTA bus meetings, but well, I had prepared a comment, two comments actually, that I responded to a YouTube channel with, and I thought it would be something that the MTA board would hate to read, so I decided I worked it up and got it ready for you, and then I couldn't find a way to upload it to the website. There's no such facility anymore that I can find, and I have a login, you know, so I went to my list of comments and dealings electronically with the MTA, and there was no way to open a new item. So I also tried various things. Then I tried to print it out, and it wouldn't print. I was going to come and give you a stack of papers, and that wouldn't work. I went to the Kinko's or FedEx, and their machines don't work. This is just like the MTA. You know, they want to run cross-platform transfers on the maybe we'll do it, maybe we won't. In any case, I wanted to talk about the trip planner, because the same type of thing. You can't plan a trip on the trip planner. I've tried 4 different operating systems, including Android, and it doesn't work. A very nice lady, we had several phone conversations, and she got caught trying to make it work, and it made the same failure as happened to me. So you're losing fares with that. If people from out of town can't use it.
Please conclude your remarks.
Yes, thank you.
Our next speaker will be Ian Matthews, followed by David Kupperberg.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. I want to speak about one problem on the E and F lines. During the middays, some of the trains that are going local are not making any announcements at Queens Plaza and announcing Roosevelt Avenue is the next stop when actually the next stop is 36th Street, and not making announcements. Better communication needs to happen. And also, I was a little disturbed to hear about another shooting on the subway last night on the C train. It's another reason why we need more police patrols and to stop fare invasion, as I'm sure it was fare invasion was to blame for it. We need police pretty much all over stations in Brooklyn and the Bronx. And yes, and a lot of elevators I've ridden are disgusting and filthy. Like at the 231st Street station on the 1 line and the Kingsbridge Road station on the B and D, along with 34th Street Penn Station on the A and C. Those elevators are filthy and really need to be cleaned. I want to make my speech quick and short, so I will end it there.
Our next speaker will be David Kupperberg, followed by Lisa Daglian.
Hi, my name is David Kupferberg, Vice President of Bus Advocacy, Passengers United. Recently, NYCT conducted the Fordham Road Inwood Bus Priority Study. It analyzed traffic along the east-west corridor between West 207th Street and 10th Avenue in Manhattan, and Fordham Road and Webster Avenue in the Bronx via the BX12 and BX12 SBS bus routes. Fordham Road would have offset bus lanes west of Jerome Avenue. For the segment of Fordham Road between Jerome Avenue and Webster Avenue, 3 alternatives, 2 of them that would have created a busway, were analyzed in depth. NYC DOT decided that only alternative A, offset bus lanes, would continue to move forward. Though not ideal, Passengers United endorses alternative A. We at Passengers United are always in favor of additional bus lanes where practical. If a community is in favor of busway, we'll support it. But we accept the city DOT's finding that a busway would have had a net negative impact on the surrounding communities. Yes, the study showed that approximately 70% of bus riders wanted a busway. The MTA favors busways and also the special interests. Unfortunately, none of these groups asked the surrounding communities where parking is at a premium if they wanted a busway. But the NYC DOT did. Communities in Upper Manhattan and the outer boroughs believe that the placement of bus lanes should be able to significantly reduce traffic and pollution, and of course, not significantly increase traffic and pollution on other streets. That is what would have happened if a busway would have been placed on Fordham Road between Durham Avenue and Webster Avenue. Alternative A is supported by the facts, but most of all, Alternative A has community support. In conclusion, it is up to the communities to decide if they want a busway, not the MTA, and definitely not the special interests. Power to the people. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lisa Daglian, followed by Jean Ryan.
Hi, good morning. I'm Lisa Daglian, Executive Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA PCAC. Condolences on the loss of Hilarion Joseph to his family and the entire MTA family. It highlights how dangerous the work that's done underground can be. Survey says riders want faster, safer, more reliable, and frequent service. Getting from point A to point B safely and quickly keeps us happier and coming back for more. During this most wonderful time of the year, when we're traveling over the river and through the trees, getting home for the holidays should be as smooth and seamless as possible. The Speed Unit, working with MOW, has its work cut out for it and is making good progress towards increasing speeds and improving performance. If it were only that easy on the bus side, where the roads are ruled by City DOT. ABLE is one way to increase bus speeds, but so too are dedicated bus lanes and busways. It's great that 3.1 miles of bus lanes were completed on Gun Hill Road, benefiting tens of thousands of riders. What about the rest of the streets planned, 150 mandated lanes by 2025? What about Fordham Road? Why are all buses in New York still slower than a chicken? We're glad to see more people on board, but getting more people to pay to ride is critical. As a member of the Blue Ribbon Panel on Fare Evasion, I'm looking forward to seeing strategies enacted across the system and hearing more about how efforts like the pilot fare arrays are working. October saw increases in crime, never welcome, especially with accompanying news about city budget cuts to the NYPD. We urge the mayor to continue working with the MTA and governor to ensure the safety of the riding public and MTA workers. Delays to congestion pricing will hurt the transit system, as will cuts to safety. It'll hurt the transit system, riders, and our region. Fingers crossed on a vote on TMRB recommendations at next week's board meeting. Otherwise, both operating funding and essential capital projects will suffer. Let's bring congestion pricing home for the holidays. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jean Ryan, followed by Jason Anthony.
Hi, I'm Jean Ryan, President of Disabled in Action of Metropolitan New York, DIA for short. There are frequent outages of certain privately run elevators. Even though they are not owned by the MTA, it is the ultimate responsibility of the MTA to see that all elevators are in working order. We want you to quit stalling and settle the case. You did not win the elevator maintenance case. It is still ongoing. Settle it. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Jason Anthony, followed by Christopher Greif.
Good morning, Reg, Haida, and the rest of the New York City Transit Committee. This month, I want to speak about safety. As everybody knows, I work in Staten Island and commute from Barnum Hill, Brooklyn. This past weekend, I had to submit a complaint to the MTA website because of two things. One, on the S40 and S90 that goes from St. George Terminal to the Amazon Fulfillment Center, JFK 8, LDA 5, and DYX 2 bus, oftentimes during the early morning between 5 and 6 a.m., and in the afternoon between 4 and 6. Passengers like myself are oftentimes pushed when boarding the bus, and drivers open the rear door, making it a free-for-all for everybody to pay. Not to pay, I'd rather say, but myself, I pay my fare. Second, this past Sunday, I almost got stranded on my way home because a driver from the ATU Local 726, whose president I never have seen in any MTA board meetings, cursed at me. And this is not how advocates should be received while boarding a bus. Let's talk about police presence. Yes, I have seen police presence in my home station, but not interacting with the conductors when each train enters the station. We need them to interact with the conductors, please. So, happy holidays to all. See you later.
Our next speaker will be Christopher Greif, followed by Charlton D'Souza.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Christopher D. Greif. As an advocate for over 30 years, I wanted to be very clear. First, I'm glad we have the NYPD here with us, and I want to thank you, NYPD, for being at the stations. But now we have to be concerned at the holiday season, so we hope to see you guys on the platforms, and I do see some of them you are at the platforms, but due to the holidays and safety, and including the holiday train that is running these Saturdays, we hope to see the NYPD even on the trains, making sure that our young kids, and that's including kids with disability, the early intervention kids, feeling safe on the train. And they do call you guys superheroes. So let's make that very clear. Children who have low function do call you guys superheroes. So even if you wear an MTA vest or badge, they will still call you superheroes. That's part of their disability, and we don't complain. That makes them happy. We want to keep the peace. The safety on a subway for them is to learn the history, have some fun, enjoy the holidays, whatever holiday they celebrate. Second, also, I agree with my fellow colleagues about the bathrooms. We do need to open more bathrooms because I have put this in the complaints on the app like over 1,762 times. Elevators need to be washed at stations, and where stations have the elevators, we need to have the bathrooms open. Please. It will be fair for disability seniors and mothers with strollers as well. We don't want to leave out all courses because you never know. Someone could not be feeling well or they really have to go. Let's make it easy for them and give them directions where the nearest bathrooms are. Thank you, everyone.
Our next speaker is Charlton D'Souza, followed by Alita Dupree.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charlton D'Souza. I'm the president of Passengers United. And I just want to express on behalf of Passengers United our sympathies to the family of Hilarion Joseph, who died and was run over by a train at the 34th Street Herald Square station last night. And also to the two victims who were shot at the Ralph Avenue subway station last night. Innocent bystanders on a train were shot. The crime situation in the subway system is out of control. And why is it that the MTA is not calling out the mayor? The mayor promised additional police resources in the subway. Where are they? They are nowhere to be seen at certain times of the day, like overnights, weekends, so sometimes you see 8 cops in one station, and then for like the next 5 stations, you'll see no police. And that's a problem. And it's come to our attention that a sexual predator on the Upper East Side was arrested in a subway station for molesting a young girl, and then he was released back only to sexually assault a woman again. What the hell is going on in the subway system? We deserve better. Governor Kathy Hochul, Mayor Eric Adams, and to the MTA board, you guys need to, call out what's going on. And the MTA employees are not safe. Imagine if a train operator or a conductor was shot yesterday on that C train at Ralph Avenue. That could have been me. That could have been any of us. So we need to take subway safety. It's a matter of urgency, and we are in a crisis, and this is an emergency situation that's going on underground. And the MTA needs to stop lying and misleading people about crimes in the subway, as well as the NYPD and Chief Kemper. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the truth.
Our next speaker will be Alita Dupree, followed by Vincent Padula.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Haida Matalsis and members. Alita Dupree, for the record, she and her with Team Folds. It's good to be back and try to put some positive energy into our virtual podium. You can never have enough subway. And this station I'm in, 53rd and 5th, reminded me. I was watching a video of Last Train to London by Jeff Lynne, and it showed scenes on the London Underground. And so this station has always been very meaningful to me in a lot of good ways, going back 40 years. How do we build the best subway we can? And I really appreciate Rich's meaningful reports and mention of the North Star, because Jerry Rafferty mentioned the North Star in Right Down the Line. So this is how I get right down the line. And thank you for doing presentations in Spanish. It's very helpful and welcoming to me and many others. So language inclusion is essential in helping to build a system that values full participation. We're working toward that. And I reflect on my time in New York. I did use the elevator at 190th on the A. It was fine. As a matter of fact, during my time in New York, of riding the subway, in some cases 4, 5, 6 times a day, I don't remember ever coming across an inoperative elevator. I think I only came across one inoperative escalator. I was riding all over the system. So there is work to do. We want to build more elevators to have more full participation. But my elevator experiences have generally been good. And so have my stair climbing experiences, but we want to make sure we keep those stairs clean. Watch out for trip hazards. But I believe in this system. It holds to ideals that are legendary and stately. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Vincent Padula, followed by Murray Bowden.
My name is Vincent Padula, and I am glad to be back here. Actually, it's the first time attending one of these meetings. I'm here not only from Educational Division Services, but the United Federation of Teachers. And I have to say, I'm getting close to retirement, and I'm thinking of becoming a dairy farmer because I love good cheese, right? But it sounds to me like we got some stanky cheese here at the MTA. And there's nothing worse when you open up your fridge and get a piece of cheese that you enjoyed a week or two ago and you cut into it and it's moldy, it's old, it tastes like, I'm not going to say what. So it's stanky old cheese. We need new cheese. So I'm here to say that we need a better on-demand program. My colleagues in Chicago had to go fight class action suit to get an on-demand program. Now, their on-demand program is $30 per trip, 4 trips per day. And even still, we're a bigger city. So I did some math. Now, I had some trouble with my on-demand. I had $25 subsidy. I went to $40 subsidy for lower trips. Now, I did some research. I got this new subsidy, and I looked from here back to home, even right now. I did it a couple times from home to here to home. Right now, it's at $14 or $15 average, something like that. That's about 5 times the fare. The federal mandate is that we should be charging double the fare for paratransit. So we're already above that. So I'm asking for the on-demand program to subsidize properly, and it would offload the system. Like my colleague said, the website doesn't work. I had many trips canceled. I'm using taxi authorizations. It's still costing you money. If you give us the proper on-demand program, we would offload the system. We would have a way to schedule our trips and save you money. It would work for everybody, for those of us who have that wherewithal. thank you for listening. My name is Vincent Padula, and I'm hoping for a better on-demand in Phase 3.
Our next speaker is Mary Bowden, followed by Michael Cohen.
Hi, Rich. Tough job you got. Tough. One of the reasons that your buses don't go as fast as they do is because the road lines were designed for 50 years ago, never updated. The signs with the arrows that point down don't work anymore. The arrows have to point up and in a direction and give you advanced information. How difficult is that to accomplish? Because Neil had a little fit with me before because I spoke at 2 meetings when there were 2 meetings. You make the rules, and just because your staff makes an error, I'm not accepting it. How difficult it is to accomplish this. See the chairs here? How many people here? Why are the chairs next to each other? Simple question. Could space the chairs this far apart, winter, but the chairs are flat up against each other. That's an example of how hard it is to change society. I can't do it. I'm fading. The mistakes I make are because my mind doesn't work right, and I know it. So it's your job, that manual and uniform traffic control devices that everybody, I worked on it for 30 years. It's time, I told them it's got to get dumped. This is not 20 years ago. Feudalism is dead. This is not a feudal society anymore. I've said what I had to say. I thank everybody who's helped me. I'm leaving because there's nothing more I can add today. Bye-bye.
Our next speaker will be Michael Cohen, followed by David Feliciano.
Hi. Oftentimes when I ride the subway, the escalators are out of service and they aren't working, and there's no notification that the escalators aren't working, except when you get to the subway station. Online, they sometimes don't list the escalator and elevator outages, and I would like there to be text messages about when the escalators are not in service, and also signs at the subway station about not in service escalators. And I also think the subway trains, sometimes when I'm riding the subway or the bus, I find that there's a odd odor on it, and it really doesn't smell good. And I think there should be more efforts to make sure the buses are regularly washed, that they make sure the floors don't stink, and that they don't smell like anything bad. Like sometimes somebody builds something and it just doesn't smell good. And I think there should be more of an effort to ensure that the buses are, trains are sanitary in that way, and that no odd odor is left when the trip gets done, so that be a more pleasant experience riding transit, riding the subway or bus.
Our next speaker will be David Feliciano, followed by Andy Pollock.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. MTA and New York City Police Department, thank you so much to be with you, all of you guys. Just want to remind you, for all my entire years in public transportation and years, riding and being in since I was during my early school days. The all time, I'm not seeing everyone, all of y'all, the American way. I'm seeing that all these years we've been discussing and then we've been seeing in the early times and the bad old times, like vandalism, graffiti. Yeah, have you even see that book on the Transit Museum? The graffiti book right there on the subway train? That was the good old times. But anyway, hey, let's turn the page in the retrofit 20th century. I'm seeing this all the times that I'm seeing. Every time I see incident reports, every time I see regular kids, or even disability people, we do not see them. You do not ever see them. Like these random passengers, like bucking or acrobatics, like, you know, like street performers. Like I say, you know what? I'm seeing this page right now. And I'm seeing Summerson's Rest, fare evasion. Like, what the hell's going on? What in the world? What is this? Like, I'm seeing this every day. And that's what I'm hearing this from NBC I-Team and Telemundo Investiga. And like, wait a minute. This is going every year in this decades. And I'm calling everybody to change that regulation and retrofit the regulation.
Please
That's
conclude
it.
your remarks.
I'm tired of it. And by the way, don't include my question. Goodbye.
Our final speaker will be Andy Pollack.
Hello, everyone. Andy Pollack for the record, Passengers United. So a couple things that we're going to talk about this month. Number one, it seems it's been brought to my attention last week when I was at the Kew Gardens Union Turnpike station on the EF line that the West Side stairwell is closed. That began this past Monday. And this should have been done over the summer. I was on the stairwell last Tuesday, and yeah, I noticed that it does need some TLC, and I'll admit that. But now what's going to happen is the workers who commute to Long Island Jewish Hospital are now going to have to cross the street from the east side of Queens Boulevard just to access the Q46 bus. So, again, this should have been done over the summer, but you guys don't understand proper timing, now don't you? Okay, second thing I want to complain about is the buses. So, what's going on with the Q46 lately? Because lately we've had trips leaving early from Long Island Jewish, we've had bus bunching on school days, and, you know, that needs to be fixed. And then also, with some of the buses in Queens that have the number 4 on it, they're not being tracked. And I'm specifically talking about the Orion 7 Next Gens. How come they're not being tracked anymore? Because every time I load the transit app, I don't see them. And on election day, when I was volunteering for Vicky Palladino, I needed the Q31 bus, and I had to go on X to ask where my bus was on Bell Boulevard and 35th Avenue, and after Uber screwed me. So, one more thing. Regarding bus lanes, just talk to Ydas Rodriguez and tell him to fix the out-of-sync traffic lights, because whoever was quoted in AM New York saying we needed bus lanes, I mean, come on. Boston has in-sync traffic lights. Portland has in-sync traffic lights. So that's all I'm going to say for now. Thank you for letting me speak today.
That concludes our public comment session for today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you to all our speakers. Before we move ahead with the committee agenda, I just want to express our deepest condolences on behalf of the Transit Committee to the cleaning crew worker that was killed last night. Sympathies go out to his family. Okay, so now, Rich, I need a motion to, well, committee meeting members, I need a motion to approve the minutes from the October 23 meeting. Second, all those in favor? Aye, okay. Rich, any changes to the work plan?
There are none, Madam Chair, and I also, too, want to just take a moment before we turn it over to Chief Kemper to acknowledge Hilarion Joseph, a track worker who was killed last night on the job. While the incident is still under investigation, we obviously take employee safety seriously, and our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. We have ordered a stand down today, so all track work, all non-essential track work was canceled, and we're taking the opportunity to refresh and retrain our employees on our protocols when it comes to track safety. It's been mentioned by a few folks that these are dangerous jobs that we ask our people to do day in and day out, and that includes folks working around active third rail and track. But I just ask everyone here in the room, my colleagues and the members of the public, just to join me in observing just a moment of silence in his memory. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rich. We're now going to turn it over to Chief Kempler. We're just going to switch some things around today because Chief has to go to an important meeting. Chief, fill us in.
Good morning, Chair Mahaltas and President Davey and members of the board. Next to me is Chief Rivera. He's the Chief of Transportation. I just want to welcome him. I believe this is his first time to an MTA committee meeting. He's got members of his team here also, so I just want to welcome them and let everyone know, being it's his first time, any of the tough questions or anything that's going to go his way, he's got that today. So thank you, Phil, for being here.
Welcome, Chief. Welcome, everyone.
So first off, as was just mentioned, I want to extend my condolences to the New York City Transit family on the tragic loss of your worker this morning. The notion of a colleague's untimely passing, especially while performing duty to keep others safe, really hits home for us at the NYPD. So again, my sincerest condolences to you all, and especially to the fallen member's family. I'll start with speaking about interest coming my way, and understandably so, regarding shooting incident last night in Brooklyn. I'll give you a preliminary story of what transpired. So yesterday, at about 5:45 p.m., while on a Manhattan-bound C train, 2 individuals sustained non-life-threatening injuries subsequent to being shot. Preliminarily, here's what we know. Our first victim, a 17-year-old male known to the department, was on a Manhattan-bound C train when a dispute began between him and another individual, another male who was on that same train car. It's still to be determined and learned what exactly that dispute was over, but that will be learned as this investigation moves forward. But during that dispute, a gun was displayed and a shot was fired. We believe one shot was fired. That bullet that was fired from the gun struck the 17-year-old male one time to his hand, and that same bullet then struck an uninvolved 52-year-old male who was sitting on a train. Again, fortunately, both injuries are not life-threatening. With that said, this case is active, and it's being investigated by detectives from the Detective Bureau. Just moving on, you have before you the crime figures for the month of October, which show the subway system experienced 223 index crimes last month compared to 211 crimes from the previous year, which reflects a 5.7% rise, or 12 more crimes to be exact. This rise was mainly driven by an increase in grand larcenies, where we had 122 versus 106, which is a 15.1% increase. And those are the incidents, fortunately, that are non-confrontational property theft that we all often speak about at these meetings. As well as felony assaults, where we saw a marginal rise of 6 incidents, 54 versus 48, for an increase of 6, which equates to a 12.5% increase. That being said, year-to-date through the end of October, we are still showing an overall crime reduction within the subway system, hovering just about 4% coming out of October. As I've mentioned at previous meetings, officer engagement, those violating laws that govern the subways and ensures a safe and orderly train ride remains robust and steadfast on our end. Theft of service enforcement remains a benchmark of our strategy, with over 3,000 more tab summonses for fare evasion issued, which is a 38.1% increase. And when circumstances dictate, over 300 more arrests. 518 verse 189. Throughout the summer and fall, I mentioned this to this committee, the importance of our efforts to curb the very dangerous and sometimes tragic act of subway surfing. I'm happy to report that we have started the school year with no surfing-related injuries or fatalities. I don't want to jinx it, and knock on wood as I say this, but it's important the committee hears this. The last fatality we had was in June, and we want to keep that trend going. Matter of fact, the last injury sustained was back in June also. We went the entire summer, and we had a large investment in working toward preventing that, with DOE included, certainly the mayor's office and his team at City Hall, and the MTA. So thank you. And our efforts seem to be paying off. Matter of fact, our arrests, which all, in honesty, are really interventions and much-needed wake-up calls, which I spoke about, of juveniles caught subway surfing, that's really primarily the age. The ages are young juveniles, 12 years old, 14 years old, 15 years old. That's the age range that we see primarily taking part in subway surfing. But our enforcement has more than doubled this year in relation to subway surfing enforcement. 114 versus 50 surfing arrests on juveniles just this year alone. So that's a significant increase, and it shows that we are focusing on this. On that note, I'd like to take a moment to share an interesting development and an example of our embrace of technology in our ongoing efforts to curb subway surfing. Over the last several weeks, the NYPD has been piloting a drone program that deploys drones near subway lines where we've seen very concerning and reckless acts of subway surfing. For anyone listening to what I just said or curious, these are topside or exterior, elevated lines. This is not indoor. While this project or this piloted program is still very much in its infancy, it has shown promise and has led to the safe removal of 4 individuals observed subway surfing, one of which occurred a week or so ago, and who's 12 years old. And with our team's work, hopefully this 12-year-old will not subway surf anymore, and will see or live to see the age of 13. Make no mistake about it, this life-saving work on a population that is sometimes too young and too bold, and to be quite frank, way too immature to understand the ramifications of their actions. On a different note, I was privileged to hold our annual memorial mass yesterday in recognition of fallen NYPD transit members, as well as members of the former New York City Transit Police Department. I was honored to have our valued MTA partners present, including the chairman and CEO, John Oliva, who was present, Chief Muller from the chief of the MTA Police, Chief Taffy. I saw Joe Nugent just a little while ago. He was there, just to name a few, sitting alongside me in the pews of that church as we recognized transit members who passed in service to our city. It speaks to how intrinsically linked our two agencies are, and our line of duty families were extremely appreciative of their attendance. They truly were. That concludes my remarks, and I'll take any questions that anyone may have right now.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief? Andrew? And then Lisa.
Thanks, Chief. While this is NYPD and not transit police, what I'm about to ask you, I have noticed in a lot of stations that there are NYPD stationed at the entrance where the booth is and the booth agent are, but not on the unstaffed entrance that's at the other end of these stations. Is there a way we can get the NYPD to figure that out, that it's the other end that largely needs the police presence?
Yeah, and look, I'll bring that back to my team, but make no mistake about it. I speak about this a lot, and I think I use the same phrase because it's so true. A proper deployment is going to be critical to our success. We're not perfect, what's what's good is we listen, and we always learn, and we're always shifting resources. But I just want you to know, and everyone in this room to know, that every post or every assignment has meaning. And oftentimes you might not even realize the meaning of why we're posted. Some people might be scratching their head as, why do we have 2 cops here and not here? And we might have reasons for that. A lot of what we do is intel-driven, intelligence-driven. A lot of what we do is reactive to current crime trends that sometimes people are just unaware of. But to your point, I will bring that back. But make no mistake about it, we don't assign and deploy cops just for the sake of assigning and deploying. I just want you to understand that.
I understand that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa?
First, let me thank you for all your hard work, to you and your team. Regarding the 12-year-old or any of these underage kids that are caught, what are the consequences to follow up the information with the parents? I mean, are there consequences on the parents' side?
No. So they're treated as juveniles. The charge would be primarily, barring something different, the charge would be reckless endangerment. And we're bound by laws and policies in relation to what our response is. That's a juvenile report. For the older folk or people of my generation or older, that's like a YD card. Okay? It's non-criminal. It's not fingerprinted. The good part of that juvenile report or that interaction is it allows us to make that contact with the family member, the mom, the dad, legal guardian, who is then asked to come to the local precinct or transit district to pick up his or her son. I spoke about the drone technology. What that offers us also is the ability to actually show mom when Junior swears to mom that I didn't do nothing. It allows us to go to the videotape, and we've done that just in the last week or two. So it's critically important. Listen, the contact and documentation is important. My personal opinion, I think what's more important is that outreach to the family member of talking sense to their child. And also, I want to go further. We're working with the Department of Education also, and they're incorporating this in their curriculum, speaking to these kids about the dangers about subway surfing. So I hope I answered your question.
You absolutely did, and welcome to Chief Rivera, who I was blessed to have as the borough commander in the Bronx. Welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions for Chief? Oh, Andrew.
This may be for Chief or Demetrius, but I've raised this before. Wouldn't it help if we had sensors or did a test of sensors on the roof of various subway cars that use these elevated lines so that all of a sudden you'd be notified somebody was on the roof?
So I'll pass that to the MTA to respond to that, but in the same of wouldn't it help? It would help if there were consequences.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Now, we are one part, and I think this is important that we have this conversation. We are one part of the justice system, a multi-layered system. We're probably the most visible. Some may say the most important, but we're the beginning. We make the arrest, and then, for the most part, the arrest is handed away from us, and everything else that comes from that is handled either by a prosecutor or DA's office, judges, juries make decisions on consequences, guilt or innocence, and we're all bound by laws that are passed by legislatures. Our arrests are up. So if anyone's curious what the NYPD is doing, we are being extremely proactive and making arrests. We are deployed. We're making arrests. We're preventing. Obviously, our first goal is to prevent the crime. But if a crime does unfortunately occur, the second best is to make that arrest. And we find ourselves arresting the same people over and over again. And these are people that are oftentimes recidivist criminals that are preying on our riders in the subway system. So just to take, wouldn't it help, away from sensors to something else that would help. And this is a topic that we speak about a lot.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions? If not, Chief, thank you for today, and we look forward to seeing you again next month.
Thank you.
Rich, we move on to the President's report?
Yes, I have just a brief presentation to share, and then we're going to go to actually Frank's next, and then Sarah. We're going to flip it just because of our guests. I want to make sure thank you, Chief. Faster, cleaner, safer. I want to talk this month about faster, what we're doing to improve service for our customers. And for subways, while we can certainly do better, and we're going to push to do better in 2024, our on-time performance in subways continues to be the highest in a decade, a little over 83%. Again, the subways team continues to deliver good service. And also customer journey time, another important measure, about 85%. Again, another historic high. We're adding service, as you all know. This month, the C, the N, the R, and the G lines will see more service. And our speed unit continues to identify sections of track where we can safely raise speeds and shorten journey times. The speed team has also been providing coaching to our train operators to improve performance, again, by safely reducing run times. These seconds add up to minutes and more for our customers. On bus, we'll get into bus in a little more detail in just a minute. Frank and team will talk about what they've been up to, but I do want to brag on them just a little bit. They have been focused on what we've been calling our 29 priority routes where we've been underperforming this year. Some of the tactics Frank will talk about in a moment. And that has proven dividends. We have seen improvements in most of those routes such that we expect some of those will fall off these priority routes and we'll have new ones to bring in 2024. So kudos to the team there. We continue to push for, as some of the members of the public, our speakers spoke about bus lanes and the importance of working with the city. We are doing that. We rolled out on Gun Hill Road a bus lane which sped up trips or is speeding up trips on the critical crosstown corridor on the BX 28 and the 38 and a little bit for the 41. That's over 40,000 customers who use that bus lane. We will see improvements as a result of that. Paratransit, not to be outdone. Chris and his team are looking at the speed of reservations, and this chart here shows you what his team has been able to accomplish over the last couple of months, which is reducing the average talk time by being more quick, if you will, on how they're able to make reservations. And as a result, you can see the percentage of calls answered. So we're serving more of our customers. John Padula asked about the 20 minutes. Well, I can tell you, John, thank you for your push on us on that. Now in the committee book, we are measuring ourselves against the 20-minute on-time performance bar, not the 30-minute on-time performance bar. So we are going to push hard to continue to improve that. Obviously, we hear each month about a push to ensure that we learn in phase 2 e-hail and move to potentially a phase 3 next year. We're continuing to grow our ridership in that regard. And we are seeing just better performance with higher yields. We're seeing the highest ridership in paratransit's history, not COVID or pre-COVID, the highest ever. So we are improving service again. We can always do better, and we appreciate the feedback we're getting, but Chris and the team are doing really well. Something I'm super excited about, and I have to give kudos to Shanifa and her team for this, which is this weekend service map. Now, New York can be, our system can be confusing on a good day for someone from out of town. But when all the work that we are doing, both the maintenance of way and C&D, and that work is going to continue into the future, we do a lot of shuttle work and changes to our system. And so we rolled this map out on all of our digital assets. Marathon weekend, by the way, where we have tens of thousands of obviously runners and hundreds of thousands of spectators from out of town. So you will begin to see this map live. We send it out on our weekender email, but it will now be posted so our customers can understand what's happening real time. So again, Shanifa and team, thank you for putting that together. Is a shameless picture of me buying the first Omni card. I I was shocked I was actually able to pull it off, not because the technology works, it does. I'm not that adept at it. However, we're excited to begin rolling out the Omni machines, working with our partners in C&D. And Mike Linus is in the back, I think wearing the same vest as in the picture, Mike. But this has been a huge collaborative effort and a huge push to get those machines out. We wanted them in the field and testing. That's going pretty well. And our goal is to begin rolling these out across the system. We also welcomed our 1 billionth subway customer a couple weeks ago, 44 days faster than last year. Ironically, he was from New Jersey, exactly, and complained about traffic and congestion, and as a result was taking the bus into the George Washington terminal and getting on our subway system. So we were happy to welcome him as part of and it's a constant reminder that we just don't serve New Yorkers. Connecticut, New Jersey, and other folks are using our system. So kudos to our customer there. And then lastly, Bobby Deal. So Bobby is retiring again after 24 years of service to the NYPD and 16 years to New York City Transit. I mean, you talk about a 40-year career serving the public. It's just been a tremendous honor to work with you, Bobby. I know a lot of folks in this room and outside this room feel that way. You'll be feted over the next few days, but we wanted to make sure that you did not leave this room without getting our well wishes and congratulations as you go off to Florida.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words, and it truly has been an honor and a pleasure working here in New York City Transit. As Rich said, I did do a career in NYPD and always felt the bond there. And I tell you, there's no better bond than working here in New York City Transit, from employees to the customers to just about everything. And I thank everybody for it. Thank you.
And Chair, that's my report.
Any questions for Rich? Okay, if not, we're going to move on to Frank.
Thank you. Some exciting things and people to talk about here with Bus. So, as Rich often states, customer satisfaction is our North Star. With customer satisfaction as our North Star, making buses faster, cleaner, and safer for our customers has been and will be our current priority. And when we ask our customers, not surprisingly, shorter wait times has consistently been the top reason to encourage folks to ride more frequently for both local and express buses. We know that as traffic continues to grow, our bus speeds are declining to pre-pandemic levels. So now more than ever, it's critical we act. Faster, cleaner, safer is not just a motto. It's a genuine commitment to New Yorkers to deliver better bus service. And this means working closely with our partners, with the MTA and the city to undertake some important projects and innovative improvements to speed up our buses and clear out our right-of-ways. Next, please. It's important to remember that buses are true engines of equity. The bus network serves a greater share of low-income and minority neighborhoods, seniors, and people with disabilities. Also, for many New York City neighborhoods, buses are the only public transportation option, with 98% of New Yorkers living within 1/4 mile of the bus stops, and buses are 100% accessible. The bottom line is an investment in buses is an investment in communities who need it the most. Next, please. Recognizing that our buses are among the slowest in the country, while we work on longer-term holistic network redesigns, we've also implemented several much-needed strategies to improve speeds in the short term. A key priority has been to work with our partners in the city to expand a network of dedicated bus lanes and busways. We know from experience that well-enforced bus lanes and busways are the most effective way to increase speeds. We have seen an average of a 10% speed increase on our bus lanes, which much greater increases on busways. With the recent implementation of Gun Hill Road, we now have over 160 miles of bus lanes across the city, speeding up buses for almost 1 million riders every day. But bus lanes are just one of the tools when it comes to improving bus service. Earlier this year, we rolled out an initiative, as Rich mentioned earlier, and we identified the 29 worst performing high ridership bus routes. We performed deep dive reviews and developed tactical action plans to improve performance. We quickly realized while there is much we need to do on our end, like strategically deploying service management personnel, working closely with New York City DOT to prioritize street level changes was important, and very important was strengthening our partnership with NYPD and traffic enforcement to target routes for illegal driver behaviors, and this was critical. And I could tell you, since March, this has paid dividends. We have collectively issued over 10,000 tickets. 36% of these tickets were for double parked cars blocking our bus lanes. And there was 54 subsequent arrests. And our customers noticed the difference. As a result of these efforts, on our priority routes, we improved overall route performance, and we saw significant improvements to almost 80% of customer satisfaction on these routes. So expanding bus priorities is crucial, but this alone won't make lasting improvements needed. Enforcing our bus lanes and busways is vital. So for us, another key priority is our own automated bus lane enforcement, or ABLE system. ABLE started with a pilot on 123 buses on 7 routes in Manhattan and Brooklyn, first of which was implemented in October of 2019. Since then, we've added 500 buses and expanded to all 5 boroughs. Today, we cover half or 80 of our bus lanes with ABLE, and the program improves speeds for almost 500,000 customers every day. Next slide. And we know ABLE works. The data shows that routes with cameras, ABLE cameras, saw an additional 5% improvement in speed across the bus lanes and busways, and a 20% on average reduction in collisions. Not to mention that drivers who receive violations in our bus lanes rarely show up blocking the bus lane again, with just 8% of violators with more than 2 violations. ABLE has had major impacts on changing driver behavior. Now I'm going to turn it over briefly to Sunil Nair, who's our Chief Officer of Zero Emissions and Bus Technology, who's going to introduce the next generation of bus enforcement.
Thanks. Thank you, Frank. It's a pleasure to be here and see everybody. I shall talk about what the next steps are in terms of expanding the bus lane enforcement program and our implementation plans for next year. In 2024, we plan to rebrand the automated bus lane enforcement program as automated camera enforcement to better reflect the wider impact that we would have on city streets, especially when it comes to keeping our bus stops clear, as well as catching those violators that actually double park on bus lanes and on regular roadways. Earlier this year, we received approval through the New York State budget to extend the benefits offered by enforcing bus lanes, to extend that over to bus stops and double parking across the whole route. So bus lanes are just a part of the route, whereas you can now enforce across the whole route on bus stops and double parking. So it's a big win for us. A huge thank you to the chair of the MTA, NYCT leadership, our government affairs team, our partners at City DOT, with whom we have been working really closely, and of course, Governor Hochul for working hard to get this approval. This will allow us to begin enforcement through a demonstration program starting May of 2024 for a period of 4 years. So we plan to work really hard at making this successful. This is quite a game changer for us, because anytime you have a bus stop that is blocked by other vehicles, our operators would have to pull in the middle of the road, get passengers off the bus, which is not just a issue with respect to accessibility, getting off the bus, but also with respect to safety, because your passengers are getting off the bus in the middle of the road. So I think, making sure that our bus stops are clear is super important for us. The second piece is that a single double parked vehicle on our road has the potential down the line to slow down every traffic right behind and to increase congestion on our roads. So it's paramount that we manage these two use cases or these two scenarios really carefully. The demonstration program itself is slated to run for 4 years and will make buses faster. And by the end of the program, at the end of 4 years, we would have affected better travel times for approximately 950,000 of our daily riders. So that's a huge one. And how do we get there? Well, we have begun work on this, working really closely with our partners at City DOT. We are putting in place all of the necessary technological changes, the business rule changes, and other enhancements to make this a success so that we can open this in May of next year. We want to activate automated camera enforcement on 14 routes starting May itself. That's the first time that we can actually open this, and we want to take advantage right at the outset. And over the course of next year, we want to expand ACE, that is automated camera enforcement, to another 400 buses and 14 new routes, enforcing both inside and outside, right across, all along the route. And we're not stopping there. Over the course of 2025, 26, and 27, we plan to add approximately 10 routes per year for a total of 30 additional routes and 1,000 buses, bringing our travel time improvements, safety improvements, the reduction in recidivism that Frank was talking about, and of course, all the other improvements that come as a result of lane enforcement to again, 950,000 customers. So we are very excited and we are working hard to do this. I'll hand it over back to Frank now.
I just have a question before, and I think Midori has a question, and so does Andrew, and so does David. It was great, and so does Lisa. So great presentation. So Sunil, we're starting May of 2024 on the existing routes, on 14 existing ACE routes, or whatever we want to call them, and then by the end of the year, we're going to do 14 new routes. Do we know where we're just if you can go into detail a little bit.
Sure. So you're absolutely right. Starting May of 2024, 14 existing routes would additionally enforce bus stops and double parking.
Going to additionally enforce, and whatever they're doing, you're towing away. Tell me how you're.
So we are making changes to the hardware on the bus.
Okay.
We're making business rule changes on the back end
Okay.
to enforce bus stops and double parking.
Okay.
We are working with City DOT to make sure that our rules and their expectations of the rules comport,
enforced,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And what else? Of course, we are going through a public campaign to make sure that our customers and the New York City public actually understand that this is going out in force.
Got it.
Right?
Okay.
And then over the course of next year, we would additionally add 14 new routes, bringing us to a total of approximately 28 routes with this capability.
And those routes are citywide, or are you going to start with a certain borough first, or just?
So the 14 existing routes are across the city,
Right.
and the additional 14 routes would be decided along with City DOT, and that would be across all boroughs.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Midori.
Yeah, this is kind of a follow-up to Hada's question, because that's the question I had a little bit. On the 14 new ones, what makes a route kind of primed for the ACE technology and the ACE program? And what are the criteria that you think you'll use?
Sure. So I want to say there are two primary criteria: high ridership, low speeds, right? Those are the two primary criteria. And then we want to ensure that the routes that we put ACE on does not, interfere with existing routes so unique routes. Let me put it that way. Additionally, you want to put it on unique routes rather than double count any routes.
Andrew, David, Lisa.
I think you answered my first question, which was, will this be made known to the public prior to its being installed? And you led us to believe that it will be. You'll be doing a publicity campaign about this. So will this mean that major delivery services that are taking up lanes, food carts, and other kinds of obstructions will now be dealt with?
So the answer is 100%. We want to ticket commercial violators. So commercial violators are allowed to double park for certain periods of time at zones where commercial violators, commercial vehicles can load and unload. But for all the other places along the route, commercial violators would be ticketed. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
David?
As a follow-up to that, there is some concern that the commercial violators just take this as the cost of doing business. How do we ratchet this up to make it enforceable? If they just, say, sure, we'll pay, or we'll bundle them and get a discount.
So the existing program calls for a stepped-up enforcement in terms of ticket issuals, starting with the first ticket at 50, the second ticket at 100, the third ticket at, I want to say, 150 or 200, going up to a max of $250. We are still working with City DOT on changing some of those numbers, but again, it's not like we want to work with them and understand what makes sense for violators.
And just to follow up on David, are passenger vehicles and UPS trucks or Amazon trucks fined the same way, or are the commercial vehicles fined differently?
So right now, as I said, right now the fine structure is the same for both commercial and non-commercial, but we want to work with the city to see if there are avenues by which we can change the structure.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, and then Jamie.
When you say you're stepping up, does that mean, is it the same vehicle that has to get the violation, or is it like a UPS truck in general? It's UPS who's getting the violation?
So,
because I know for my vehicle, it would be the license plate, right? So, but for a commercial vehicle, it won't always be, it'll be the same company, but different vehicles.
So two buses passing by a violator X minutes apart, let's say 5 minutes apart, would get, that vehicle would get ticketed. So in that sense, it would be the same vehicle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're done?
No.
Okay.
Are school buses and accessorized buses allowed to be riding the bus lanes?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay. You done? All right. Jamie?
I just want to say I'm very happy to hear this program. I did not know this was happening, so thank you. It's very timely, too, because as we speak about congestion pricing, we have to enforce double parking. The communities need to understand that that's all together. So I just want to say I'm very happy to hear it.
Thank you.
All right. Frank, move on.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So I just want to show you something. I want to thank Matt Zeller and the customer care team who did this very short video for us that, for those who plan on continuing to block the bus lanes, this is what you can expect. And I will mention that no subway lines were injured when we did that. Okay, so just in closing, I just have some employee and partner recognition I want to take the time for. So first I want to start is I want to give a huge thanks to our partners at the NYPD, Chief Kemper and Chief Rivera specifically, and your commitment to these continued bus priority initiatives, right? Many of them have been out, their team with our road operations team, with numerous blitzes since March, right? We're grateful to have them here. And just to mention a few, and I'd like them just to stand up. Captain Larry Myers, Sergeant Stephen Sprague of the 113th Precinct, if you could stand up, please. Thank you. I know Sergeant Phil Miranda, you're here. Thank you. Also, from the Traffic Enforcement Division, Mahad Rahman, Manager, if you could. Thank you so much. So, and also, just briefly, Chief Rivera has some good news for us he'd like to share. So, thank you.
All right, Chief, we're always ready for good news.
Thank you. So we've heard a lot about speeding up the bus lanes and making sure that we're prioritizing those routes. So the NYPD is pleased to announce that we're creating a bus lane enforcement task force. So certainly, certainly ACE is the way of the future, but until that's in full effect, our primary mission is going to be to deter parking violations in bus stops, bus lanes, and busways along priority corridors, to expedite the bus routes and improve traffic safety for all road users. So if I could just turn it over to Traffic Manager Rahman for some brief overview of what this entails. He's the commanding officer of the Traffic Enforcement District in Queens South.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, everybody. Just wanted to give you what the Chief brought up. Citywide bus lane enforcement task force will officially commence starting this Monday, December 4th, to enforce the bus stop and bus lanes in order to expedite bus routes and improve traffic safety. So the key thing is going to be, like, we're going to cover 0700 to 2000 hours. It's going to be 18 bus corridors out of 39 identified for priority enforcement based on the high ridership and reported traffic delays. So under the authority of and the supervision of Chief Rivera and the Chief Transportation Traffic Enforcement District will dedicate a total of 85 traffic agents who are going to be on foot and motorized units along those corridors, and with 15 tow trucks dedicated to this whole project, so making it 100 even. And we're going to dedicate all this enforcement throughout the day just to make sure that we enforce, as we said, to improve our the timing of the bus, overall timing. And it's going to be all 5 boroughs. Like, just to tell you those 18, the breakdown is going to be Manhattan is going to be 8, Bronx is going to be 4, Staten Island is 1, Queens is going to be 3, Brooklyn is going to be 2, and as I'm the CEO of Queens South, I will have 2 of them that are out, just to give you an example. Woodhaven Boulevard, Cross Bay, from Metropolitan to 163rd Avenue, and the next one is going to be Jamaica Avenue between Sutphin and 168. We all know that Jamaica, Sutphin, is 19 different routes go through there. It's a very high ridership thing. Chief of Transportation and Traffic Enforcement District will be in communication with MTA, with you all, to evaluate the positive and the negative impacts, and we will fix the strategy and guided by this data to start our phase 2. That's all I have, Chief.
That's great news. Thank you, Chief. I think Midori has a question. And then Lisa.
Just a quick question. Thank you so much. Great to hear about the Queens corridors. Maybe this is Lisa's question too. The Bronx and Brooklyn corridors, by any chance, do you have that list?
Yes, I'll go with the Bronx. We have 4 in the Bronx. The first one is Fordham Road between Broadway Plaza and Pelham Parkway. It's Bronx 9, Bronx 12, Bronx 17, and Bronx 22. The next one, Bronx 41, is Webster Avenue between East Gun Hill Road and East Fordham. The next one is going to be Bronx 2, Bronx 17, Bronx 19, East 149th Street between West Exterior Street and Southern Boulevard. And Bronx, the next one, the last one, 4, is going to be Bronx 5, Story Avenue between Bronx River Avenue and White Plains Road. That's the Bronx.
And Brooklyn, Chief?
Brooklyn, we have 2. It's a B17, B46. Select local buses run there. Utica Avenue between St. John's Place and Avenue K. And the next one is B44, also select local, Rogers Avenue between Eastern Parkway and Dean Street.
And let's not forget Staten Island. What are you doing?
Just
Highland?
one, which is S79. That will be Highland Boulevard.
Highland Boulevard, that's what I thought.
Between
Okay.
Richmond Avenue and Clove Road.
Great, thank you. Andrew?
So this is great. In view of the fact that Brooklyn and Queens are much larger geographic areas, are you going to revisit how many tow trucks you're allowing for those boroughs? Should they not be enough?
Absolutely, that's the plan. When we start, we're going to evaluate on a daily basis. This report is going to be evaluated as soon, anytime we do a project or the pilot program. The whole idea of it is we keep track of the summonses, we track of the actually like how busy it gets. Depending on that, we prioritize that, and with the chief's permission, we'll definitely deploy more. I believe that's the case, Chief. Yes.
And these, in those boroughs, the group of tow trucks will be stored in different areas so they can be dispersed to the problem areas more easily, correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Brandy.
Yes, thank you. Good program, sounds good. Are you actually going to be towing UPS and FedEx trucks, or are they exempt from that?
We'll follow the proper procedure when we tow. I mean, if it is that absolute necessary in that situation, we have a available heavy-duty truck, probably that would be the case depending on the situation. It's going to be all based on the actual scenario in the field.
Right, I'm assuming
But
they're going to
we
be
are
working, and, it's a new program, and testing it and figuring it out.
I remember riding an uptown bus on 6th Avenue about a year ago, and there was a FedEx truck. The guy was in the lane, and he was sorting the packages behind him and on the sidewalk. And I sent the pictures to Frank. All right, thank you.
All right, Frank, go ahead.
Okay, so, as everybody's experienced, we're talking about traffic here. Unfortunately, we have a group of amazing employees here also that have taken on this massive challenge, and I'm pleased. I want to announce a few of them. First of all, I want to thank Sunil, and I want to thank Luis Costa, and your entire team. They're the team who works hard with DOT and administers this program and is going to make ACE this reality, so thank you. A very special thank you to Jim Catullo and his entire team that helped figure out the magnitude of this problem. The traffic checking team went out there and boots on the ground did the surveys to figure out what we needed where. And specifically, I want to recognize some of his team members here, Jim, but along with Steve Avioli and Sean Miller, if you could stand up. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I want to recognize our entire Department of Buses road operations team and our buses command center team, right, and all their efforts. Some of the folks here today. And first, I want to recognize, somebody who really doesn't want to be recognized, but too bad, Jason McShane, who's here, and Jason's going to stand up. Jason was really the glue who coordinated a lot of these efforts with our partners with PD and traffic enforcement. Thank you, Jason, for your leadership. And particularly, I want to thank road operations dispatchers who are here, Alex Gonzalez, dispatcher Everett Rodriguez, and Mike Vietas, who is here also, supports us. Thank you. All right, and I want to give a very special shout out to one of our road operations general managers, Dave Burrows, who was leading all this, right? But stand up, stay up. But more importantly, after 28 years of dedicated service, like Bobby Deal, Dave will be retiring effective December 1st. So, Dave, we're going to miss you immensely. Thank you for all you've done all these years. Thank you. And by the way, Dave's going to Florida. He's running from winter. So, and then finally, this is as real as it gets. I want to recognize bus operator Felix Checo. Are you here? Please stand up. So, stay up. So, maybe some of you have seen the Hero of the Week, but Felix is a bus operator from Kingsbridge Depot, and on October 3rd, which happens to be my birthday, it was a present for me, right? Operator Checo, while in revenue service on the BX9, he had a male customer who was unconscious and in distress. He professionally secured his bus, he performed CPR, and saved his life. Now that's a true transit hero. Thank you, Felix. Now, Rich, I will turn it over to you.
I think we're going to turn it over to Sarah.
Oh, okay.
That works.
Sarah?
And maybe I can set the table if that's great.
Right.
So I think that's what Sarah wanted me to do, is to just set the table quickly. There's been a lot of conversation about ridership, about fare evasion, about whether we have capacity for folks moving from their vehicles into transit with congestion pricing. We thought we would level set all this with some data that OP's been working on. But there are really four things, I want this committee and those watching to really understand in our ridership. Number one, we have plenty of capacity for the expected increase in ridership due to congestion pricing. Sarah will have some of that data in a moment, but we have plenty of capacity. Two, travel patterns among and between the boroughs are actually returning to pre-COVID time of day norms. I think sort of coming back into the central business district, obviously that ridership really shrank during COVID, but it's starting to normalize. Again, Sarah will go through some detail there. So overall ridership is growing. However, fare evasion continues to be a stubborn problem, particularly on bus. And we are going to continue to implement, the Blue Ribbon Commission recommendations, but we'll also be looking at other strategies in New York City Transit in the coming year. We'll come back to this committee with some of those strategies in the new year about how do we increase fare payment. This is something that is not only important to ensure that those 5 zeros that Kevin Willen shows, meaning we are deficit free over the next 5 years, Jay Patel as well. But more importantly, if we can raise collection, we can actually reinvest it back into service. And boy, wouldn't that be a wonderful thing to be able to do. So with that, that's the summary. These are the conclusions. Sarah has the data to walk through, and I appreciate her and the team at OP putting this together. So over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start off talking about the available capacity. As a normal course of business, we monitor crowding on subways and buses, and when we are able to, we increase service. Here we show the morning peak at the most crowded point pre-COVID. The most crowded point is what we also call the peak load point, which in almost every case is as the line enters the central business district, which is Manhattan south of 60th Street. Prior to the pandemic, 3 of our lines, the 2, the E, and the L, were over the board-approved guidelines. The dark blue line shows the situation now. On average, we're at 68% of our pre-COVID levels. Every line has plenty of capacity on average. Of course, there are individual trains that can get crowded, especially when there are service issues. However, the most crowded line now is around 80% of our guidelines. Since congestion pricing is part of the discussion now, we thought it worth showing the potential impacts. The environmental assessment showed subway ridership increases of 1 to 3%. It is critical to remember that the number of people traveling by transit is a different order of magnitude than the number of people driving into the central business district. Prior to the pandemic, at peak period, there were 10 times more people riding the subway than driving into Manhattan, and even today, 7 times more people ride the subway. In fact, with our current capacity, subways could carry literally every single person who drives into the central business district and still be less crowded than they were before the pandemic and still be below guidelines. Now let's take a look at capacity on the buses. This is a composite measure of the peak load points on all the routes by the borough. As you can see, it's under 70% of guidelines. That said, there are some routes that are approaching capacity, and we will likely adjust service levels to match demand on those routes in the upcoming year. I'd also note that the Bronx local bus network redesign added capacity, as will the Queens bus network redesign. Again, the story on routes entering Manhattan south of 60th Street shows even greater room for additional drivers we shift to transit. As with subways, the impact of the central business district tolling is small, between 2 and 3% for Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, and the Bronx, and up to 5 or 6% for Staten Island. Now we're going to take a look at some of the geographic patterns. We want to talk about how we are returning to pre-COVID travel patterns. First, let's talk about the origin and destination patterns on subways. in the past, we have shown trends where people board, at which station people board. But that only tells you half the story. We find it more useful to look at different types of journeys our customers make, and for broad analysis, we've broken them into 4 categories. Here we show the first group, what we might think of as traditional trips between the boroughs and Manhattan south of 60th Street. We think of these as typical work trips, but of course they include many other purposes. These trips were the largest component of our trips pre-COVID, but not the majority, accounting for nearly 50% of subway riders. Next, we show trips entirely within Manhattan south of 60th Street. These made up 70% of the trips pre-COVID. In red, we show the intra-borough trips, that is, trips that began and end within the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, or Manhattan north of 60th Street. These can be short distance, although they can include some rather long trips, such as Coney Island to Greenpoint or Jamaica to Astoria. These trips were close to 20% of our market pre-COVID. Finally, we show trips between the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, and Manhattan north of 60th Street. These are generally longer distance trips, which disproportionately include essential jobs such as medical and construction, as well as a host of discretionary trips. Early in the pandemic, when subway ridership was below 30% of normal, the ratio of these trips was significantly different. Trips within Manhattan south of 60th Street were down the most. The traditional commute into the central business district was proportionately down as well, although perhaps not as much as was widely perceived at the time. Meanwhile, trips within and between the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, and Manhattan north of 60th Street retained a greater share of their riders. This is not surprising since many of these trips were essential travel. But let's look at where we are today. As you can see, we're virtually back to where we were in October 2019. There are some slight variations. If we get further detailed and look at specific boroughs, but in broad strokes, the distribution of trips is essentially indistinguishable from what it was in 2019. On the bus side, we see a similar return to pre-pandemic patterns. By 2021, the Bronx had the highest retention rates, while Staten Island lagged in the initial recovery. By 2022, the boroughs were effectively even, all within 4 percentage points of each other in terms of their recovery. In recent months, we have seen a large surge in Manhattan and Queens ridership. The same can be said about the types of routes. Recovery of express bus ridership initially lagged, but has now caught up to and even surpassed recovery on local buses. We see the same traditional patterns returning if we look at ridership by time of day. Here we show subway ridership by hour as a percentage of the entire day. As you would expect, prior to the pandemic, we see 2 dominant peaks at 8 a.m. and at 5 p.m. As the orange line shows, in the fall of 2020, we did see a flattening of the peaks as well as a shift earlier, with 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. taking over as the peak hours. The green line shows the situation as of this fall. The afternoon peak has entirely recovered. Relative to the total, we still have slightly higher midday ridership and slightly lower morning peak, but the 8 a.m. hour has regained its status. It's important to note that roughly half of the remaining gap between green and black lines is due to changes on Mondays and Fridays when more people work from home. In fact, this shows midweek on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and as you can see, it's almost indistinguishable from the black line. On buses, we see a similar story, although it is slightly less dramatic. System-wide, we had 2 peaks, but the bus PM peak is generally longer and flatter, given how the school market is a larger component of our bus ridership. Early in the pandemic, the reductions in ridership were much more evenly distributed throughout the day, though we did see a drop in the AM peak while the PM peak shifted to a bit earlier. Today, it's hard to see the difference from pre-pandemic. In fact, the morning peak is a little bit higher than was observed previously. Let's turn our attention to the issue of fare evasion. The committee has discussed fare evasion, but we haven't laid out in the past how these changes impact the ridership story. Here we show how paid ridership has been recovering over the past 2 years, a seasonally adjusted rolling average relative to pre-COVID levels, with subway in blue catching up and more recently surpassing bus ridership in gold. Subways on weekdays are around 66 to 68% of pre-COVID levels. Buses are at about 60%. But that's not the whole story. This is only paid ridership. The dark blue line shows subway ridership, including fare evasion. Fare evasion rose from 5% to 14% last quarter. As you are aware, fare evasion on buses has risen even more severely, up to 14%. This means that if you include all bus riders, bus ridership is around 85% of pre-COVID levels on weekdays and up to 88% on school-open good weather days. Back to you.
You're great? Good. Okay. Thank you. Midori, then Andrew.
Hi, thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you, Rich. This information I don't think surprises all of us, but it's really great to see it broken down. I don't think this is in our committee book. Can we have a copy of this presentation as well? Great,
Yes.
thank you. And so the orange line, looking at the orange line, it really looks like bus ridership is back. It's just about payment.
Up to 85%. Yes.
But in terms of ridership, 88%, you said? 85?
About 85.
Okay, great, thank you.
So we've had this discussion before about fare evasion, and I remember 2 initiatives that transit was going to undertake to help to minimize it prior to the RFP for the new fare gates and the new turnstiles. One of those was a 30-second delay on the slam gates. If that has been installed anywhere, can you tell us how it is working?
It hasn't been installed yet. Demetrius, correct me if I'm wrong. He's not going to correct me because I'm not wrong. Is that right? Just want to make sure that that's the reason. I think what we should do is come back to the committee probably in the new year to talk about the suite of things that the commission, the Blue Ribbon Commission suggested where we are, like the backcocking, for example, and a few other things we've made significant progress. We're in the early stages of the Eagle team now enforcing local bus with the support of NYPD. We're probably 8 weeks in total and maybe 4 weeks in with NYPD support. So we're starting to learn there as well. So there are sort of, to your point, Andrew, like the short-term and medium-term tactics that we're employing, and then the longer-term on the WAGs. But as you can see, I mean, for 85%. What I see in this is if we can capture more of those fares, we can reinvest it back in the service, right? Potentially. So, but we've got our work cut out for us. But this is going to be a major focus for the transit team in 2024.
Let me just say that I ride up the system a lot, and I cannot take a ride without seeing multiple incidents of fare evasion.
Yeah.
And it's like the thing to do now.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Thank you. We move on. Rich?
Yeah, I thank you, Chair. I actually forgot there are 3 other employees we wanted to recognize. That is my bad. It must be some sleep deprivation. But Kathy, Floor, and Sultana, 3 of our outstanding employees from paratransit. I talked earlier about what great work. We always prop up Chris, but he is the first person to prop up his team. And they're doing fantastic work. What we didn't say is we're actually debuting our Transit All-Stars on a monthly basis, right? So this handout in your packet is going to recognize employees. We actually had a few subway folks that couldn't be here today, but folks who are just getting the job done across our organization. So kudos to our paratransit team. Would you mind standing up and taking a round of applause as well? So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for all the hard work you put into making this system run, every part of the system. So again, thank you. We're going to, I guess, Q left, but you're going to give us the accessibility report? Thank you.
How about now? Is this a hazing ritual? Now? Yeah. Great. Good afternoon. Thanks. Well, aim to keep things brief. On behalf of MTA Accessibility, we really just wanted to echo this month the faster theme, right, and faster, cleaner, safer, which is really a perfect example of where our agency's priorities around accessibility and customer satisfaction could not be better aligned. When we make our stations, our trains, our bus stops, and our buses more accessible, we help all of our customers reach their destinations faster. And our vision for universal accessibility, which Q talks about often, goes beyond elevators and ramps to include bus design, wayfinding in our stations, and more, which means a faster experience navigating transit for all of our customers. We're particularly excited this month to hear about the expansion of ABLE and starting up the ACE program. Faster bus boarding requires keeping those bus lanes and stops clear and accessible. And we're particularly excited, again, to see expansion to bus stop enforcement and double parking enforcement next year. We're proud to have a fully accessible bus fleet for those who need the ramp or lift to board, but that access is only as good as the operator's ability to pull the bus to the curb and kneel the bus or safely deploy the ramp or lift. Also on the bus side, as we expand our bus open stroller program, we're allowing parents and caregivers who use 57 bus routes all throughout the city to board faster, right? They don't need to take the time to fold up their stroller and hold their child. That speeds up boarding for those customers and for all of our bus customers. And we're really excited about the continued positive feedback that we're getting on that program. On the subway side, with generous funding from State Senator Brad Hoylman-Segal, we continue expanding on 4 of the most successful features that we tested at the 2019 Accessible Station Lab at J Street Metrotech. You'll be seeing large blue, white, and yellow floor decals marking the accessible boarding area at more of our midtown stations, including Times Square, Herald Square, and other large and highly trafficked stations. The Navilens app, which provides wayfinding information and language translation access, is installed now with codes at 66th Street Lincoln Center and 72nd Street on the 123, and stops along the M66 bus route. And we have 9 additional stations that will be getting those Navilens codes in the coming months. This free app can help all customers, not just those with visual disabilities, to more easily and therefore quickly navigate subway stations and bus stops. We'll certainly be keeping the committee apprised as we expand any and all of these initiatives, and really just want to thank our partners in buses and subways, paratransit, and throughout the organization for their continued commitment to ensure that all of our customers can travel faster, cleaner, and safer. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, we'll move on. Rich, do we have any procurements?
We do not.
Okay. If not, we need a motion to adjourn so we can move on. Okay, second. All those in favor? Thank you, everyone.